Have you ever seen a car more made for me than this thing right here? Because look at this cheese wedge looking car that I'm gonna hopefully be bringing back to life. And I know that you're probably asking yourself right now, Maddie, what the hell is this thing? And you are looking at a 1975 Sebring city car. This baby is all electric. And it was actually the best-selling electric car in the United States before Tesla came around. It's essentially like a street legal golf cart. It can go about 40 miles on a full charge, and it can go like 30 to 40 miles per hour. Hopefully, we're gonna be able to change that a little bit with some of the upgrades that I'm gonna do to this thing. But before we tear this entire car apart, do you guys want a tour of it, see what we're working with, and see what kind of stuff I might need to upgrade? And then we can start thinking about the things that we can like custom design for it, because I already have a whole bunch of ideas. If you guys have any ideas right off the bat, throw it down in the comments. We also need a name for this thing. I haven't quite figured out what I'm naming him. So if you have a good name, let me know. But we'll go ahead and start with a nice little 360-degree walk around the car to see what we're working with. As we said, it's fully electric. The batteries definitely need to go though. The doors are also kind of interesting. It's just kind of this lever that goes back and forth. And you gotta give it some love to get it closed. Another interesting thing is only the driver's side has a side mirror. I was thinking I would probably add a second one on the other side. So that means we can design a custom one on this side. Well, and that side too, so that they match. The body of the car does have a few cracks in it, but one interesting thing is that this is just ABS plastic. So that means I should be able to use like the similar technique as 3D printing. I could basically just plastic weld all of these different cracks. I could even use like a 3D printed pen to fill it in. So we're gonna try a few different methods as we find the different cracks around the entire car. Because we definitely have a few kind of big ones here on the roof that we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna fix those. If we take a look on the inside of the car, we've got the bumper here, and go ahead and get rid of that. All of the batteries are found underneath the driver's seat. So in here we've got, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe they're lead batteries. Obviously they've seen better days. So we'll definitely be replacing all of these different batteries with new, stronger lithium batteries. I also think all of the seats have to go because they're definitely in rough shape. Not a whole lot of cargo space back here, but it's enough to work with. On the dashboard here, we've got this faux wood panel. I'm not even sure what it's exactly made out of, but I'm definitely gonna be replacing all of this and all of these different buttons and modules. This is how you shift it from forwards to reverse. And yeah, even the speedometer only goes up to 50, and I think that's probably pushing it. There's also this disgusting cigarette holster here. I'm definitely replacing that. We could totally custom design. I feel like a cup holder is too like spot on. I feel like there's gotta be something else that we can make that mounts to that point right there. And that's what I mean. I just feel like there's so many opportunities for miscellaneous things that we can design for this. And yes, even my house is unnecessary blue, so I'm sure you can guess by the end of this project what color this car is gonna be. And I'm sure this thing is not very waterproof, but I feel like we should at least clean it off a little bit. Maybe it'll give us a little bit of a look into maybe what this thing could be. So let's get little Cheese Man cleaned up a bit. Nope, it pretty much still just looks like it has the same potential. But there was no way that was gonna get me down. It was time to officially get my hands dirty and kick off this project. And like all good projects, before we can actually start building anything, we gotta start by destroying a few things. I started by going piece by piece across this 50-year-old car and figuring out all the different things I wasn't gonna need. And there was definitely just a whole bunch of miscellaneous junk that absolutely had to go. And with a project like this, every single time you take something away, you're probably gonna reveal something that you're gonna have to fix down the road. And that was definitely the case with this PU leather. I knew I had some cracks in here, but taking it off, I revealed a whole lot more I was gonna have to fix. And then there's a whole bunch of little things that come up that feel like a metaphor for how this whole project is gonna go. Like when I was trying to get rid of the seat belts, I just could not find the right bit. And I kept going back and forth, guessing and checking until finally I figured out the right one and I got done what I needed to get done.
time to deal with the batteries, I wasn't really sure my game plan because they were all daisy chained together and they were all pretty heavy. I thought there's no way these have any power in them, so I decided to just snip all the cables, and that way I'd be able to go one by one, lifting these things out, and man, were they heavy. And I gotta imagine the majority of the weight of this car was coming from these batteries, because other than these, it's just a metal frame and some plastic. But before I knew it, I was going in for that last battery, and now I had the entire underseat cavity ready for those new batteries in the future. I got all of the gross, disgusting carpet out of there, and I was finally starting to see the blank slate of what this car could actually potentially be. With the sun going down, I decided it was time to call it a day on the very first day working on this car. So one thing that I was definitely noticing when I was pushing it back to the garage last night when I was all finished up is how much lighter it is. Those 8 lead batteries that I had were so heavy, and not having them in the car makes it feel so much lighter. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But one thing I do know that's a good thing is that we're gonna be replacing them with these lithium batteries. And these were actually sent over for the project from Epic Batteries. So instead of the 8 lead batteries before, we're gonna be able to use 4 of these lithium batteries. And they're gonna hopefully give us a little bit more range and power when we're driving around. They also sent over a 12-volt kit for all the accessories for inside the dashboard. I'm gonna have to dive in and figure out what all of those different pieces are going to be, but this is going to have to be a project for another day because we have a few more things to destroy / put back together before we're putting some power in this baby. Well, let's take a quick look at where our progress is so far. Obviously, all the seats in the battery are gone. We got rid of the contactor that was in the back. I got rid of all of the gross, disgusting carpet in here. I got rid of the battery charger that used to be over inside here. I got rid of the leather door handle and the pocket that used to be right here that we can replace, as well as all the sort of leather PU, whatever the hell was on the top of this here. And so I think it's time to start working on the cracks that we have all around the body here. For this, I was going to have a few approaches that I was going to try out to see what was going to work best to fix all of these different cracks. The first thing I have here is a plastic welding gun, and so basically you can melt and smooth out the plastic with this bit, and then you can also do like stitches with this thing and hold it together. Next up, I've got a 3D printing pen. Because the shell of the car is ABS, I should be able to use a roll of ABS to fix things up. And lastly, I have some plastic epoxy adhesive that should hopefully fill in some of the gaps and holes. I decided I was going to start with the plastic welder and use these metal stitches to hopefully fix some of these bigger cracks. You essentially just have to heat them up super hot and then you slowly put them into the plastic over the crack, giving a stronger bond. Then you just rinse and repeat all the way down the crack until it's fully bonded. You are left with these little stubs, so I just use a rotary cutting wheel to cut those all away. I switched things over to the flat metal bit, and that's just going to melt the plastic over the crack to really finish this up. After a little bit of sanding to smooth things out, I was thoroughly impressed at how strong this actually felt, and this was definitely gonna do the trick around the car. Now I just had to go around the car and figure out exactly where all of these cracks were so I can make this thing strong again. The next order of business was to start tackling the actual holes that we had in this car, and this is where the epoxy was going to come into play. It's just a simple 2-part epoxy that you mix together that's hopefully going to plug this hole and fix that issue. It was now time to start tackling some of the bigger cracks that I had here on the roof. I started out by doing a similar technique with the metal stitches, but I decided to do them the other way because I thought maybe across the larger gap it would hold it a little bit better, and it seemed like it was doing the trick pretty well. But we still had a pretty large gap, so this is where the 3D printing pen was going to come into play, and I grabbed a roll of ABS filament and got that loaded into the pen itself. Once it got up to temperature and was spewing out the top, it was basically just like a colored pencil, coloring inside the lines, getting all of that ABS plastic filled inside that crack. After sanding it down flat, it seemed like it was doing pretty good, so it was time to move on to the next issue. And that was gonna be this huge missing corner piece we have here on the bumper. I think I'm gonna have to do a few different techniques to get this finished. I was gonna start out by using this metal mesh, and that's gonna sort of act as a backboard on the bumper where I can install it on the inside, so then I can build things up from there. finish off all the areas where I used 3D printed pen, I decided to slap a layer of epoxy to hopefully fill in any last little micro holes or gaps that might be there from the process. I knew it was time to take a little break because my little buddy Stub here was getting hungry. He comes around pretty much every day looking for some food, and I gotta say he must be one of the most spoiled little chipmunks ever after I 3D printed him a few little accessories for his domain. But soon enough it was time to go back to work removing all the other parts that I wasn't gonna need on this whip. Like I mentioned earlier, once you start taking things apart, you start finding some new issues because I found a few more cracks that I had to patch up. By the third day, I really started to feel like I was getting in my groove. I was also getting a much better idea at what parts on the car I was going to be able to purchase off the shelf to replace, and then what parts I was going to actually design new pieces for that would be totally custom. And there'd also probably be a hybrid of that where I would purchase some things, take it apart, use the internals, and then redesign a custom housing for it. But with all of the lights, electronics, and other accessories finally off this car, the last thing I needed to tackle was taking out the front and back windshields so we can move on to the next step of this process. So this should hopefully be one of the very last things that I need to take off the car before we move on to the next step. It's been a bit of a, whoa, this car, it loves to roll away from me. That's one issue I've had doing this whole thing. Every time I was like putting pressure on it anywhere, it would just slowly start rolling away from me. But it's been a bit of a whirlwind going through this entire car, just slowly nitpicking all of the little things that I need to take off of here to strip it to the bones. And I gotta say, I think it's looking pretty good. I mean, like bad good, like it's at a point where I can make it look better. We'll go in for a new 360-degree tour. Obviously, the windshield's gone, the windows are gone, the back windshield is gone, the headlights are out, or the tail lights and the headlights. And it's because we're at a little bit of an interesting crossroads. We're at mid-October right now. We're approaching the winter here in Vermont. It's gonna get cold. So I think I made the executive decision. I'm painting it today. I've got the entire car sanded down and ready to go. I just don't wanna wait too late before it's way too cold before I can paint this, because then I'm gonna have to wait like 6 months before I could actually paint it again. So we just have to bite the bullet and just do it right now, today. And again, it's another thing that I've never done before, so we'll see how this goes. Another thing with it being fall in Vermont is that the leaves are coming down and there's debris everywhere. And that doesn't really bode well for painting a car because I want this thing to come out super professional looking. So I got myself this giant inflatable paint booth, and honestly I think I was equally as excited just to set this thing up as I was to actually paint the car. And the funny thing is, I've actually had this in the Unnecessary studio for like a year and a half. I cannot remember what project I thought I was gonna need it for, but what a happy coincidence that I had it now. I feel like people often say that doing the prep work before you're actually gonna do the work that you gotta do is sometimes more important than knowing how to do the actual work itself. So I really didn't want to rush myself in this process getting this car ready to be painted. And soon enough, I was ready to zip this car up and get things going. I'm starting out with this adhesive promoter, and this is basically a spray that's gonna hopefully allow the primer to stick to the ABS plastic just a little bit better. With that dried, it was time to go in with the first coat of primer, and I've never used one of these paint guns, so it was a little bit of a rocky start. So I went a little bit conservative until I really got my groove and figured out exactly the right technique to get this going. And as I got a little bit more confident and dialed in the settings on the gun, I was off to the races. I ended up doing 3 full coats of primer just to get a real nice solid base, and it was looking great so far. And that meant it was time for the star of the show. Let's do some color. And the color that I landed on is this Porsche Miami blue, and I thought it would hopefully match the unnecessary blue perfectly. And especially with something like paint, when you're looking at it online, who knows what it's actually gonna look like in person, but when I took that lid off, I was so happy with my decision. When I got things loaded up in my gun, I was ready for my first line of color, and I was in love with it. The temperature was sitting perfect, and with 2 coats of blue on there, it was time to hit it with that nice clear gloss. And this was actually a multi-part system where I had to measure out the hardener and combine it with that crystal clear paint. And if I'm being honest, it wasn't quite as satisfying as laying on the blue. You know, you spray that clear spray on top, and you know it's going down, but it just didn't have that same transformative feeling that I had when I first put the blue one on.
One suggestion I would have if you're painting a car for the very first time, don't film a YouTube video at the same time. That was definitely stressful. But let's go take a look on how everything came out. Because I would say for my very first car paint job renovation, it came out pretty good. I mean, I gotta be happy with that result. There's a few defects here and there, but for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the finish. It's been drying for a little bit, so this should be okay. And we've got an unnecessary blue car. Here, now we can get a much better look at the paint job. It's honestly the perfect color. I've only been working on this thing for a week, and it already has changed so much. All right, I got things cleaned up a little bit, and I gotta say, it looks so good on camera. At this point, I think we can call that a wrap on episode 1. I think this is like the destruction episode because everything after here only goes up. We gotta put in new headlights, we gotta put in new windshields, we gotta redo the windows, we gotta put in new bench seats, we gotta redo that whole dashboard. And of course, we have to build some unnecessary things along the way. If you aren't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a future episode. And if you have an idea of something I should build to it, what I should do to this car, go ahead and drop it down in the comments and I'll check that out. And maybe we can brainstorm like 10 super unnecessary things that we can build for him. I can't believe it's only been like a week that I've been working on it. He looks so different than when I first started a week ago. I still don't have a name though. I still don't have a name. And with that, I'm gonna go audition for the Avatar movie because I'm completely blue head to toe. So with that, I'll see you guys at the next unnecessary invention. See ya.